So I will let Dr. William Wintermantel bring up his screen for, I believe we're going to start out with Cucurbit yellow stunting disorder virus.
All right, so we're going to kick this thing off today with Cucurbit yellow stunting disorder virus. Cucurbit yellow stunting disorder virus is one of the most widely prevalent whitefly-transmitted viruses, if not the most widely prevalent whitefly-transmitted virus affecting cucurbit production in the United States. It causes severe leaf yellowing on all cucurbit crops, both those that we produce in the field, as well as a number of cucurbit weeds. The virus is particularly important for production in the southwestern United States, where most of American melon production occurs. This virus is particularly severe with regard to melons. Symptoms of CYSDV begin to develop with chlorotic spotting on some of the older leaves of the plant near the crown. Those spots develop into what we term a mottle symptom on the leaf that coalesces into larger areas of chlorosis where the veins remain green and the areas between the veins are yellow. This pattern is very typical. It looks very much like a magnesium deficiency or other nutritional deficiencies and spreads from the crown outwards down the vine. When infection occurs in young plants, plants can become severely stunted and sugars may be reduced as well. CYSDV was first identified in the United Arab Emirates in 1982 by Hassan and Duffus, and then spread throughout much of the Middle East and Mediterranean. The virus is now widely prevalent in many parts of the world where cucurbits are grown, including Asia, East Asia, the Middle East, the Mediterranean, even parts of North Africa and Southern Europe, and finally moved into the United States. The virus has not been identified in South America or Australia. Within the US, CYSDV first emerged in Texas in 1999, indicated by the star for first introduction, and then was found in 2006 in Southern California, in the Southern California desert production region and Arizona. In that area, it hit approximately 100% of the acreage that fall season when it first hit, and then moved within a few years to Florida and then throughout much of the Southeast. The virus was found later in Central California in 2020. So as you can see, the virus, like described previously, this virus has moved quickly throughout cucurbit production areas of the United States. CYSDV is transmitted by two variants of the sweet potato whitefly, Bemisia tabaci. These are known as MEM1 or Middle East Asian minor 1 or the Mediterranean whitefly or MED, formerly known as the B and Q biotypes respectively. Transmission is referred to as semi-persistent. What this means is the virus, once it's acquired, can be held and transmitted by the whitefly for an extended period of time. Effective transmission requires an acquisition feeding period of about 18 to 24 hours for efficient transmission, although shorter periods of time can allow virus acquisition and spread. Efficient transmission then requires a longer feed on the plant being inoculated by the whitefly of 24 to 48 hours. CYSDV, while not transmitted for the life of the whitefly, is retained by the vector for a very long period of time compared to some of its relatives. It can be transmitted for up to 9 days in some cases, with gradual loss from over time with removal from the host or from the source plant. The larger the population of whitefly, the greater the spread. Warmer weather tends to increase whitefly movement among plants and allow the virus to move not only among crops, but also into weeds and other susceptible crops that might be reservoirs for the virus or places from which the whitefly can acquire the virus and move it into cucurbits. This is an example of what can happen with large populations of whitefly and a solid source of virus. This is a fall field in the Central Valley of California, and you can see that in this particular year we had a lot of yellowing. This was characteristic of that year where we did have an epidemic, and that was actually the first emergence of this disease in the Central Valley of California. CYSDV infects plants from at least 10 taxonomic families. Many of these include weed hosts that do not produce symptoms. You can see some of the symptoms on one of the common weeds in the desert on the right with the interveinal yellowing, much like you would see on a melon leaf, whereas a typical plant would not have that type of symptom, it would just remain green. This is very characteristic of not only CYSDV, but a number of other viruses related to it, in which plants can be infected. They can actually be reservoirs, but they do not show symptoms. Some of the more important reservoir hosts include buffalo gourd, which is widely prevalent as a weed throughout many cucurbit producing areas of North America. Alfalfa, an important perennial host. Although the virus does not generally infect every plant in an alfalfa field, there are a lot of plants in an alfalfa field, and alfalfa is a great reservoir for this virus, unfortunately. A number of other weeds are shown here, including silverleaf nightshade, which has a rhizome that grows underground, allows that to be a constant source of the virus. London rock, a spring plant, spring brassica, that actually is a great host, even though it again has no symptoms. So these are all sources. Other plants of lesser importance epidemiologically include lettuce, snap bean, and shepherd's purse. Although lettuce is a non-cucurbit season crop in the desert production areas, it has not been shown to be an important reservoir for the virus. The virus does not move well from lettuce to lettuce. There are many viruses that produce symptoms like CYSDV in cucurbit plants. These include cucurbit chlorotic yellows, another crenivirus, cucurbit aphid-borne yellows virus, which is a different type of virus that produces exactly the same symptom, beet pseudo-yellows virus, which is transmitted by a different whitefly, and a couple of other viruses that are not yet present in the US, but if they were to move in, might not be identified because they look very much the same. As a result, it's important to have a good diagnostic approach to be able to differentiate CYSDV from other viruses that might be present, or to determine if you have a nutritional deficiency causing the yellowing symptoms. The best methods for differentiation and identification of CYSDV are molecular methods, including reverse transcription PCR or RT-PCR, quantitative RT-PCR, high throughput sequencing. In many cases, we use a multiplex methodology. There are a number of those methods available now, and these are very important because many of the viruses occur together as mixed infections. Although serological methods are available, they're better for testing levels of virus if you know what you're looking for already, because some of these antisera will cross-react with related viruses. There is genetic resistance to CYSDV. This is important. This is something that has been worked on for many, many years. That material is now becoming commercially available, just now becoming commercially available. I know not everyone is going to be able to use that material right away. There are a number of, only a few varieties have been released so far. As a result, it's very important to manage whitefly populations and virus within the field. Weeds can be an important reservoir that can allow virus to move into a cucurbit crop and among cucurbit crops, and also overwinter. Therefore, it's important to treat areas with weeds near fields with herbicides to manage those and keep them in check. Before plow down of a field, it's important to treat your plants with an insecticide. This will prevent whiteflies from taking off and moving into another field or into local weeds where they can overwinter and increase the problems the next season. Do not plant cucurbit crops until nearby infected fields have been removed or treated. Otherwise, these whiteflies will move the virus into your new field. Another good way of reducing the impact of whitefly-transmitted virus is the use of reflective mulches. Particularly, reflective mulches like silver are shown to be even better than white reflective mulches to repel whiteflies in fields while plants are young and haven't fully covered the rows yet. In addition, although a little more expensive, Agribon row covers can be used. These are allowed to be put over the row while the plants are very young. It keeps the whiteflies off the plants. They're then peeled back to allow pollination to occur. And once they're peeled back, you need to spray with an insecticide to make sure that you can, again, slow this down. This is all very important because what it allows the plant to do is get a little bit bigger before the whiteflies move virus into the plant and affect your production. Much of American cucurbit production now involves transplants. Transplants should be inspected for whiteflies, eggs, and nymphs, both at the transplant facility and by the grower when those plants are received. Regular testing of transplants will protect both the grower and the transplant producer and limit spread. One of the issues with testing is virus titers are often very, very low in some of these transplants. There's a long latent period of about 3 weeks after infection and before symptoms develop. And as a result, sometimes a plant can be tested. There may be a low level of virus and you may not be able to identify that. Therefore, it is important not only to test before the plants are put into the field, but also monitor afterwards to see if you have symptoms and try to raise transplants in the same area where you plan to plant the plants to prevent introduction of the plants of new virus into those areas, whether it be CYSDV or another whitefly transmitted virus. I just want to conclude by showing a couple of the fact sheets, or one of the fact sheets here for cucurbit yellow stunting disorder virus, as well as the postcards we have. These postcards are actually nice. You can put them in your truck. Gives you an opportunity to see what the symptoms look like, so you can look and see, is this something I might be concerned about? Finally, the link to the website, which has these documents and others, is shown here on the right, and you'll see that at the end of the webinar as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wintermantel.